Let me begin by welcoming everyone. Thank you for coming. Can you advance to the next slide, Peter? So let's begin by just pausing and taking a breath. We are hoping to create a feeling of chaverim or chaverot here. Here's an outline of our program for today. We'll begin with the land acknowledgement. I'll say a little bit about our organization, Reformed Jews for Human Rights. I'll introduce Erez and the Green Olive Collective, and then we'll have a presentation from Erez. We'll have time for questions and discussion, and then a few closing remarks. So move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm coming to you from Treaty 6 territory in Turtle Island. This is District 4 for the Métis Nation, and this is traditional land of Dene, Cree, and Métis people, among other indigenous peoples. And this is a land acknowledgement in the form of a bracha that I like to use, that was actually composed with Eretz Yisrael in mind, but I think it works for acknowledging colonial harms both here and in Palestine. Elohei haruchot lechol basar ten banu ometz להמשיך ולתקן את עוולות העבר גם בהווה למען תהי ארצנו ברכה לכל יושביך ושכניך ולכל באי עולם. God of the Spirit, whose care is for all mortal beings, grant us the courage to continue and remedy the wrongs of the past and the present, even when the price is painful, in order that our land be a blessing to all its inhabitants, its neighbors, and to all those who journey in this world. And since we are launching a new solidarity circle, I thought it would be appropriate to say the traditional Jewish blessing for recognizing some new milestone and new activity. So let's all say it together if you would like to. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu
והגיענו בזמן הזה.
I got that garbled, but I hope Hashem understood. Okay, moving on. Okay, so our organization, Reformed Jews for Human Rights, began in 2021 in the wake of Israel launching attacks on the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Peter and I, and then a few others, found each other online, and we together drafted an open letter to the Reform leadership, which many of you signed, urging the institution to speak up in defense of Jewish values that we say we support, such as justice, compassion, and respect for human rights, but the leadership in practice has been silent on, if not actively hostile to, particularly vis-a-vis Palestinians. As our repeated attempts at institutional engagement were met with stonewalling and gaslighting, we decided to organize webinars to bring Canadian Jews voices of Jewish and Palestinian activists working for peace and justice in Israel-Palestine and here in Canada, so that we can hear for ourselves the stories that the institutional leadership are trying to keep from us. More recently, we learned of Green Olive Collective Solidarity Circle initiative, which includes a regular webinar series of their own, so it made sense to join forces, and that's what we'll be talking about today. And I should also mention that we are in the process of organizing a town hall sort of event within the next month or so to brainstorm about the future direction of our organizing outside of the Solidarity Circle project. Okay. So, the Green Olive Collective is a social enterprise, tour operator, advocacy, and solidarity organization committed to a democratic future and an end to the ongoing displacement of Palestinians. They provide communities around the world with insights into the segregation policies of the occupation and the resources to engage in meaningful advocacy in solidarity with Palestinians. This is accomplished through active engagement with the global community, through tours of Palestine, Israel, a worldwide membership program, and various local and transnational advocacy campaigns through the Green Olive Solidarity Network. The organization works to promote justice in all its forms, including the universal right to freedom of movement, education, infrastructure, and home. Moving on to the next slide. Our speaker for tonight, Erez Bleicher, is the Membership and Advocacy Director of the Green Olive Collective. As a community organizer, he's worked for many years with the Center for Jewish Nonviolence, with the All That's Left Anti-Occupation Collective, and with other platforms advancing racial, economic, and gender justice. I had the pleasure of getting to know Erez when I was doing protective accompaniment in Palestine in 2022. I got a bad case of flu, or maybe it was COVID, and I was sent back to Jerusalem to convalesce for a few days in an activist group house where Erez was living at the time. And Erez graciously looked after me, and he didn't freak out when I made myself some chicken broth in a non-fleischig pot, which then had to be rekoshered. And I might also mention that Erez's spouse is the illustrious Meyer Rosen, whose reporting and analysis pieces regularly appear in Jewish Currents, 972mag.com, and elsewhere. So with that, I will turn the presentation over to Erez, who has some slides to present. And Erez, thank you so much for being here, and take it away.
Beautiful. Thanks, Asher, for beginning this with such intention. And it was very moving and touching to settle into this space and land together. Wonderful to be with all of you, and I'm really glad that we've come together to discuss the Green Olive Solidarity Network and a solidarity circle with Reform Jews for Human Rights. It was meaningful also to hear about the organizing you've been doing in the last year since 2021 to have a little bit more context. I hope very much to also in the future, when there's more time, talk with each of you here more and hear more about the different ways you've engaged and are engaging, and the different entry points into the work that are present in this space. But because time is limited, I'll just start and say that, as Asher informed all of you, my name is Erez Bleicher, and I'm the Advocacy and Membership Director of the Green Olive Collective, an advocacy, tour guiding, and solidarity center committed to a democratic future and the end of the occupation. And I grew up in the north of Israel, Palestine, in the Galilee until I was 9 years old, when my family moved to New Hampshire. And then I came to Jerusalem in 2015 after attending university in Chicago. Was introduced to many of the co-resistance and solidarity networks that I'm still active in during that year. And since that time, I've been part of a variety of different platforms and organizations working in support of Palestinian civil resistance and steadfastness in the West Bank and elsewhere. And I guess just to give a little bit of background for the Green Olive Solidarity Network and the Solidarity Circles, as we begin to discuss in more practical and logistical sense how they operate shortly, I want to begin by just saying that The Green Olive Solidarity Network and the Solidarity Circles are very much an outgrowth of the network of relationships and the constellation of co-resistance that's developed on the ground and internationally with Palestinian communities in the West Bank and in Area C specifically over the last decades. And they have been conceived in partnership with our Palestinian co-organizers as a way to invite people around the world into the network of relationship, trust, and co-resistance that Palestinians have been building and cultivating as an element of their popular struggle for self-determination. Many people around the world, understandably, don't always have that opportunity to come in person on the ground to do productive presence, solidarity organizing, be with the communities in person. And I wanted to think about a way with others that people around the world who are not present physically could be in direct contact, direct and sustained relationship with the communities, and not in a one-off webinar or two, as has so often been the case in the past. There is very much already in place an active transnational movement, of course, in support of Palestinians and in relationship with the specific communities that we organize alongside and in support of. But there hasn't been, that I'm aware of, a collective coordinated network that allows people to develop relationships with people on the ground, with community advocates, with Palestinian human rights defenders in the Nablus district, Masata Yatta, and to engage in collective actions in solidarity and mobilize their communities in an ongoing and durational way as part of fuller and more robust solidarity organizing. So that's one piece of background. And the other, of course, is that over the last year and a half, of course, all of us in our very many different contexts around the world have very rightly, as part of solidarity work, been responding to the catastrophe on the ground in Israel, Palestine, and Gaza, first and foremost, and the West Bank, increasingly also in these last days and hours and weeks. And we are right to do so, and we must respond to the conditions on the ground and the catastrophe taking place. But I wanted to try to think, along with others, if I could, about ways to build a proactive, forward-looking infrastructure of relationship and solidarity that could allow us to meet also future moments that will come. As we all see, the reality geopolitically and on the ground is not static, certainly now with Trump in office in the United States, and also before. And we anticipate that and know that there will be moments for us to meet with more or less capacity in the coming years. For example, in Masata Yatta in firing zone 918, there are 12 villages that are threatened with mass eviction. I know Asher is familiar with the region. In another moment, I can give more information about it. But in 2022, the Supreme Court of Israel, after many years in the courts, declared that the army does have the right to evict these communities en masse, these 12 villages, anytime it chooses. With the increased impunity over the last year and a half, and now with Trump in office, for example, we anticipate that in the coming years, that's something that very much might be enacted and the military might attempt to do. And to have a network of people around the world with local chapters, solidarity circles, who know the people on the ground, who have spoken for months or a year with community members, who understand the context, who have followed the development of events in real time and are already, the infrastructure is already in place to be mobilized and to advance different kinds of grassroots and diplomatic intervention as much as possible, is one of the logics at play. And at the heart of all of this is relationship. Solidarity, as I relate to it, is a relationship. And relationships take work. All of us in any sphere of our life know that any long-term or any sustained long-time relationship involves moments of vulnerability and difference to negotiate, involves building trust over time and being present with one another in difficult moments. And that's also the spirit of the Solidarity Network. Solidarity is a relationship, and sustained solidarity means we also develop ways of being with one another. We work through moments of tension and difference that inevitably come up when we're attempting to counter systems of power and state violence. And the Palestinian communities we work with in Masata Yatta, in the Nablus district, in the Jordan Valley, have spearheaded local and international relationships of solidarity as part of their struggle, are calling for international communities to mobilize in solidarity as conditions deteriorate ever more. And this is part of us responding to that call and developing deeper infrastructures and relationships of solidarity and transnational organizing that can better meet the moment and better advance the vision of the future that all of us with our partners want to see. So with that, I'll share my screen just to talk a little bit more practically about how the Solidarity Network and the Solidarity Circles operate. And then I think, I'll pass it back to the organizers to transition, but I'm sure there'll be time for questions and open discussion. So, can people see this? Wonderful. So the Green Olive Solidarity Network launched last June. We launched with a public event featuring Basel Adara, now the widely known and lauded co-director of No Other Land, and a longtime human rights defender in Masafa Yatta, along with Gamo Hareini of Youth of Sumud in Masafa Yatta. And since the Solidarity Network launched, Solidarity Circles have developed in cities around Europe, the UK, and North America. And each Solidarity Circle is formed as part of this global network of advocacy and mutual aid with Palestinian communities in the West Bank. And each Solidarity Circle is a group of people committed to maintaining sustained and direct relationships of solidarity with Palestinians, amplifying the voices of activists living under occupation, supporting on-the-ground activism in the West Bank, and becoming advocates for change in local communities, which I know you and many others involved already are advocates and involved in solidarity and justice organizing, but integrating the new relationships and insights and calls to action from the ground into the important work that's already happening. Participants join monthly online meetings with residents of communities in the West Bank in order to maintain direct contact, learn about the lived reality of occupation, engage in advocacy in the places they live, and ground that advocacy in direct relationships with Palestinians living under occupation. To say a little bit more about this, the monthly Solidarity Network meetings happen at 1 p.m. Eastern every last Sunday of the month. So since last June, we've joined with a different community member on the last Sunday and human rights defender on the last Sunday of every month. And in the monthly Solidarity Network meetings, we rotate between the communities, which I'll say more about shortly. The intent of the monthly meetings is very much to form a sort of rhythm for relationship building, rhythm for the Solidarity Network, and a rhythm for the Solidarity Circles. That could ground the relationships and act as an anchor for the work that we're doing. And it was important for me to rotate between regions and communities on the monthly calls that we work with, because I didn't want it to be the case that a specific solidarity circle was paired, for example, with one village in Masafa Yatta, and if the village down a half a kilometer away was being threatened with mass deportation, mass eviction, that then the solidarity circle wouldn't have a relationship. So it was important for me that each solidarity circle was connected to the wider network of relationships across regions that we're working alongside of and responding to calls to action from and calls to solidarity from. And it was important for me to have a centralized place each month where the whole network comes together. So every solidarity circle joins together these monthly end of the month calls. And that also allows for emergency updates and emergency calls to action and solidarity to reach everyone in the network at once. If, for example, Auda, who Asher knows, in Umm al-Khair in the South Hebron Hills, needed to call for emergency solidarity support of different kinds or intervention. He doesn't have capacity in that moment of escalated risk or violence to talk with 12 different organizations or 12 different solidarity circles in different places, to have one centralized place where updates can reach and information can reach the whole network was important. But alongside that, as things continue, I want to, with the solidarity circles and the participants that join, develop other structures alongside the centralized monthly solidarity network meetings to develop more small group and one-on-one relationships with Palestinian human rights defenders on the ground. Very happily, we're already, after half a year, 3/4 of a year since the network launched, getting to the point where the monthly calls are at a size where there's time for everyone to always ask the questions they want, etc. They're informal, it's not a lecture, it's a time to come together and speak, but I want to work with others and with everyone joining to develop future platforms too. And that's important to say also because I want to be clear that this is a new platform, a new structure, a new form of solidarity organizing that's very much being developed. So every solidarity circle that joins and every participant is going to be part of innovating this platform for solidarity and relationship building. And we together going forward will develop new structures and ways to connect. And there's a lot of different creative ways to build this going forward. And we can talk about at the end of this call also. So along with joining the monthly calls as much as possible, participants also become members of the Green Olive Collective and the Green Olive Solidarity Network and contribute monthly on a sliding scale to sustain regular solidarity projects and work days on the ground in the West Bank and materially support the steadfastness of Palestinian communities in the face of military occupation. Examples include planting olive trees, rebuilding after home demolitions, cultivating lands threatened with expropriation, protective presence, and similar activities. I'm not sure which of you may or may not have been on the ground in the West Bank at different times to see for yourselves what kinds of solidarity activities I'm describing or I've just named, but I thought I'd just show you quickly directly where the sliding scale contributions go. One moment while I switch screens. Can people see this? Great. So lately, as the Solidarity Network has grown, we've been orienting towards seasonal projects where as ways to support the communities. So, for example, in the last months, there was the olive harvest. Following the olive harvest in January and December was the olive planting season. So we joined with communities in the Nablus district in Jordan Valley as part of an international campaign called the Sowing Solidarity campaign, in opposition to the greenwashing tactics of the Jewish National Fund and in support of Palestinian farmers in the northern West Bank stewarding their lands in the face of military rule. Communities around the world and cities around the world held salons, actions, educational events, educating about the role of the JNF in the dispossession of Palestinians and mobilizing their communities to plant olive trees, not settler forests, to sponsor olive trees in the northern West Bank and replace over 1,500 olive trees that were damaged in arson attacks by settlers in the year before. So following this international campaign, we joined in person in communities in the Jordan Valley, like here in Mahul, with the farmer Yusuf, who we work with, to replant olive trees in the Jordan Valley with him and his beautiful family. This is Mohammed Barakat, my colleague at the Green Olive Collective, who I hope all of you have the pleasure to meet in the future. He was very active in Palestinian trade union organizing during the First Intifada, and there's a wealth of information. Here we are with the family, following their lead, of course. And Then we joined also in the community of Burin. Actually, let me reshare so you can hear the sound. One moment. To join and plant in person the olive trees that were sponsored by the Global Green Olive Solidarity Network. And yeah, by the contributions, the monthly contributions of participants in the Solidarity Circles. Here was Bassam speaking that day.
Erez, I'm not getting any sound from him.
Are others?
No sound from him.
I think you have to click something in your on your end, Erez, like something about changing the mic.
Yeah, I thought I did, but it's okay. He's speaking about what it means to plant the trees together and be able to rehabilitate the orchards that were destroyed in settler attacks. I'll send this to you all afterwards for you to listen. But in any case, here are other pictures of us joining in person to plant the olive trees that were purchased with the contributions of Solidarity Circle participants. So this was the latest project. And along that, in the past, we've joined in person in communities to harvest the olive trees and accompany farmers to pieces of land that they hadn't been able to access since October 2023. And with Solidarity Presence, wanted to attempt going to, this is in 20, here we are with Basso. And actually this last week, we went to Umm in the South Hebron Hills, and with the contributions from Solidarity Circle members, we were able to help them rehabilitate a honeybee farm that had been damaged after the army forced the community to move it to a further village because the settlers in Carmel, directly adjacent to Umm complained that the bees were flying over the fence. And after the settlers complained, the army forced them to move it. So with the monthly contributions from the Solidarity Circles, we were able to get 11 new honeybee boxes. I'd ask me not to post it on Instagram or online because he doesn't want, he's afraid that the army will see and come and confiscate the honeybee boxes again or damage them in some way. But yeah, it was a really beautiful day this last Friday. We planted flowers for the bees. The bees will arrive themselves in April. Auda has said that's when the best time is, but everything's prepared for them. And every Rosh Hashanah, it's become tradition on the ground with Green Olive and all that's left to go and have a tour of the honeybee farm in Umm to celebrate a sweet new year of co-resistance together. And I'm always schlepping large boxes of honey from Umm back and forth from the South Hebron Hills to Jerusalem. And there's always some extra that's unclaimed in my home somewhere. So if you ever happen to be here and want honey, they're all very welcome. But in any case, those are the kinds of activities that the monthly contributions go to: direct solidarity, mutual aid projects, projects that go to support the whole community or have a specific function. And I do want to say that mutual aid is with Palestinians is more important than ever, given the conditions on the ground. Also in the West Bank, let alone Gaza, the communities are effectively under siege much of the time. People are unable to go to work. Often people are farmers, can't farm, shepherds can't shepherd. The olive harvest was much reduced because people couldn't access their olive trees due to settler and military violence. So this form of mutual aid and economic justice and support is deeply meaningful, but I do want to say that I don't want the monthly mutual aid sliding scale contribution to be a barrier of entry. There are many forms of solidarity, relationship building, mobilizing communities in demonstrations, educational events. Mutual aid and economic support is one form of solidarity, and anyone who can give anything from $3 to $300 a month is more than welcome, and it's wonderful. This is about bringing people into relationship. Um, and I guess I'll finish just by saying that a few last notes. Firstly, there are solidarity circles now that have launched, including Naamod, the Jewish British anti-occupation collective in London, and also Unitarian Universalists for Justice in the Middle East, spearheaded by congregants in Houston. A Unitarian Universalist congregation in Houston is different than a Jewish anti-occupation collective in London. That's a different political terrain, a different milieu. It's a different context to operate in. So outside of the coordinated monthly meetings and coordinated global actions like the Solidarity Campaign, like the Global Solidarity Kite Festival with Buin coming up in July, that's held every July. Through this network, there will be globally coordinated actions. But beyond that, it's also up for you to decide, in addition to those globally coordinated elements, what's the most meaningful, exciting, strategic ways for you all to engage and build solidarity in your own context. Of course, you know your own communal landscape more than anyone else, and I and Green Olive am always available as a thought partner and to support. And there are resources that we can provide also as helpful, from ready-made presentations about Area C and the politics and policies of military rule in the West Bank to connecting you to on-the-ground organizations. I'm sure you also have many resources yourselves already. So I'm very excited to build this together and expand the possibilities of transnational solidarity and co-resistance. Once again, the relationship building is at the heart of it. And the idea is, of course, that while it won't happen overnight, through this network and through the monthly meetings and through additional forms of engagement that we develop, that all of you will also have increasingly your own direct relationships with the people on the ground and can reach out if you want someone to pre-record a message to play at a demonstration or attend by Zoom an educational event. The idea here is to really strengthen and create these relationships in a fuller way. That to this point, the solidarity circles that have launched over the last while, there's some that are solidarity circles of pre-existing justice organizations, collectives, or networks of one kind or another, like Naamod in the UK or Unitarian Universalist for Justice in the Middle East, and others that are formed are geographic based. There's a Western Massachusetts Solidarity Circle. They decided that in their context, though they're each part of overlapping justice communities of different kinds and Jewish justice organizations of different kinds, that they'd have a geographic one. So either is great. And also, it's just a reality in our lives that most of us are often in overlapping communities or overlapping justice groups with overlapping membership. So it's okay to be like
Okay. The other comment I want to make is I want to commend this organization for providing resources. Like we're part of Standing Together, and like they're stretched, but we're not getting nearly the kind of resources from Standing Together to do our actions here in the diaspora than I'm seeing from like such practical information, and it makes it so much easier for us. So I think you're doing everything very smartly and wisely. What's the minimum monthly contribution?
Yeah, to what you said before, thank you, and we're trying our best. And I do want to say that if anything else is needed at any point, please feel free to reach out. And this is for us to build together. As for minimum contribution, anything from 3 to infinity, 3 to 300, anything people can.
Infinity, okay.
Yeah, if the need, because of the level of violence and constriction in the West Bank, is greater than in any specific network would ever be met. But anything from 3 to 300 is wonderful. Anything does help. And again, there are people for whom any kind of monthly contribution is a stretch.
Yes.
And if people are able to give $100 or more a month, It is deeply needed and an important form of solidarity among other forms of relationship building and mobilization and solidarity that are also needed and people shouldn't be barred from. But it does bring me to a point of clarification, which is to say that everyone registers as a member of the Solidarity Network and of the Solidarity Circle as an individual through this form. So I'll just share it quickly so you can see directly.
Is it tax deductible? No.
It is not at this point. I'm working on it.
Okay.
1 second, I'm having tech issues. So everyone who wants to join the Solidarity Circle should go after this, if you're not already a member, to members.greenolivecollective.com. And here at the membership website, you can click Become a Member, and I can send this to Asher also to forward. So everyone to join fills out this form to register and officially join the network in the Solidarity Circle. Filling out and completing this form is how you get integrated into the mailing list for updates and announcements, for the Zoom links for the monthly Solidarity Network meetings, to receive calls to action, etc. It's also how you set up the monthly sliding scale mutual aid contributions through this form. And here there's this question, are you becoming a member as part of a Solidarity Circle? And I added RJHR. So in this instance, that's totally integrated. Being a member of Green Olive is being a member of the Green Olive Solidarity Network. And your monthly contributions go to our advocacy and solidarity projects with communities in the West Bank to practically support the steadfastness of communities. There's a very small amount, a few hundred a month, that goes to support and help cover our Zoom account so we can hold the webinars and such. But other than fixed overhead costs, all of the contributions go to support mutual aid projects in solidarity with the communities. But yes, I haven't said so much about Green Olive in general. It was founded in 2007 by Palestinians in the West Bank, mostly Jerusalem and Bethlehem, along with international and Israeli Jews who had been mostly active in ICAD, the Israeli Committee Against Home Demolitions, and came together to form what primarily at the time was a human rights and anti-occupation oriented tour guiding project that brought people on tours like you described, very much in this context of movement building, bringing people to form direct relationships with communities, to bear witness, and to bring insights from the ground to communities around the world. I was brought onto the Green Olive team 2 years ago to help expand the work into new forms of international engagement, political education, and solidarity organizing. But the work that I'm doing now is also an outgrowth of the work that Green Olive has done since 2007. Important to say. Was there something, curious if there's anything more that you had on your mind that you want to
when you're a member though, what does it mean to be a member of it? Of Green Olive itself?
Yeah, it means you're in our general mailing list also, but effectively it means it's integrated. It's one and the same as being a member of the Green Olive Solidarity Network.
Okay, but there's not we don't vote for a board or anything.
No, I will say through the Solidarity Network, every Solidarity Circle, I've asked to have one or maybe two coordinators, and the coordinators I've asked to be points of contact for Green Olive and for the network and to streamline communication and give updates, but also to join every 3 or 4 months a coordinators meeting. There's only been one so far, and the next one should be taking place soon. But that's the forum where we've begun to vision the network into the future, to make decisions about the seasonal projects. As the network grows also, we'll have to develop our decision-making structures. They're emergent in the same way that the network is emergent. So being a member is being part of the Solidarity Network, where coordinators also are going to be part of visioning the network forward and advancing the ways that we feel the most robust and vibrant solidarity can be developed. Did that make sense? I mean, I think every solidarity circle that's formed has also its own internal mode of communication, whether that's an email list or a Signal group, a WhatsApp group. So also Forum Jews for Human Rights as a solidarity circle should have, in whatever medium feels right for all of you, a way to communicate with each other about things that are also not globally coordinated, but you're doing an action in your own community or an educational event or whatever it is. But then for people to be part of multiple solidarity circles, you're in 2 different WhatsApp groups for 2 different solidarity circles. Yeah, so that's more than peaceable and wonderful.
So, thank you again to Erez. That was a wonderful, very helpful presentation, and to all of us who showed up today. We invite you to get involved with us. There's our website. It's a WordPress website, and you can sign up if you're not already. And we're looking for people not just to be on our mailing list, but to help with the work, because there's work to be done. And also, the main message of today: become a member of the Green Olive Collective. There's the website that Erez showed us a moment ago, but we can send this out in a follow-up email as well. So on to the last slide. It's our practice to close with a blessing, sort of dedicating ourselves to pursuing justice. So, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu liodof tzedek. Thank you, everybody, and Shavua Tov.